There's a rare type of poetry in football, not always written in trophies and league titles, but in raw, unforgettable moments. How does a player who inspired a generation become a legend in the very league he failed to win? In this video, we're taking a look at Steven Gerrard, my footballing hero growing up. As someone who paints iconic footballers for a living, I'm obsessed with stories like Gerrard's where glory so closely intertwines with disaster. The man who carried Liverpool Football Club, and the man who maybe was never meant to win what he truly desired. But what does it really mean to win? And how do we define greatness in a game that worships trophies and silverware? Because to me, Steven Gerrard wasn't just a footballer. He was almost like a Greek tragedy. He was a myth. He was a man that was built for greatness, but wrapped up in tragedy at the same time. I was about 10 years old when I first seen Steven Gerrard play, and he didn't look like other players, and he certainly didn't move like other players either. Even from the first day he stepped on the pitch at Anfield, you could see that he was different. There was something raw inside of him. He had the type of urgency that seemed as though he was playing with a weight already on his shoulders. And as I got older, so did Gerrard. And I slowly but surely watched him become the heartbeat of Liverpool Football Club. He wasn't an elegant player like Zinedine Zidane, and he wasn't flamboyant like Ronaldinho. If I was to describe Gerrard in 2 words, it would be violent grace. He'd fly into thunderous tackles. He'd score 40-yard screamers. He was a box-to-box midfielder in every sense of the word. And he was versatile. He could play in any position. I even think if you put him in goal, he'd be able to do a job. He could literally do it all. He could defend, he could score, he could head, he could lead. But as Gerrard's talent developed and exploded, Liverpool Football Club was almost crumbling around him at the same time. Steven Gerrard at times was surrounded by superstars at Liverpool, but for the most part, he was surrounded by average players. He was surrounded by a team and a club that didn't have its shit together like it does now. From dodgy owners to multiple managers, there was never really a sense that Liverpool were world beaters, even though they achieved some success during his time at Liverpool. Steven Gerrard dragged the likes of Igor Biscan and Jimmy Traore to glory. Week after week, as someone who went to the game and watched them in person, it began to feel like every game was just watching Steven Gerrard beat the odds. So here's my first question. How can one man carry a team that was built to fall apart? And what happens to that man during that process? There's no escaping Istanbul and the miracles that Gerrard was able to perform in that team. Gerrard's header, his fist pumping celebration, his galvanisation of the fans to get them off their feet and singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." That was a night that definitely defined Steven Gerrard as a player, along with many moments leading up to that final, including his heroics against Olympiacos. But was Istanbul a blessing or a curse for Steven Gerrard? Because here's the strange thing. Steven Gerrard achieved European success before we were able to build a decent team around him. And after that, it never quite happened again. Without doubt, Istanbul gave Steven Gerrard immortality, winning the Champions League in a team that had absolutely no right to win that Champions League final. 3-3 against AC Milan. That's the type of story that lives forever in football. But for me, it also gave the club an excuse to delay a rebuild of the team. It was almost papering over the cracks that was Liverpool Football Club at the time. As far as the club were concerned, as long as Steven Gerrard was at Liverpool, the impossible could still become possible without putting too much effort into building the club's foundations or giving the spine of the team real strength. So I ask you again, was Istanbul Steven Gerrard's peak, or was it a trapdoor into his future success or failures? And of course, after that, Steven Gerrard was almost the highest prize in football. He got offers from Real Madrid, he got offers from Inter Milan, and of course Chelsea, with Jose Mourinho wanting him in the centre of his plans. And in 2005, Gerrard himself did hand in a transfer request to leave Liverpool, and then obviously had a change of heart. And he stayed, and many people believe that's because he was threatened to stay which I don't believe is the case. I think Steven Gerrard stayed for something much deeper. At least that's what I like to believe. And I think that's what makes Gerrard different. In a world obsessed by legacy with proof of silverware, Steven Gerrard stood for something different. He chose loyalty over legacy. I think he still believed that he could win the Holy Grail, the Premier League, with Liverpool FC. And that decision may or may not have cost him everything that he dreamed of. He could have easily went to Chelsea to win the Premier League, but the argument is, would it have meant as much? And the other question is, if Steven Gerrard would have went to Chelsea to win the Premier League with Lampard and Drogba, would he be remembered as much as he is now? Would his legacy be as legendary? Would he be seen as a sellout? Would he be seen as someone who took the easy route? Would we even see him as the warrior that we see him now? Or would he just be another cog in the winning machine? The argument over who was better, Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, is a fascinating one for me to sit down and look at. And even though those players were instrumental in the success of their teams at the time, they're not looked at as talisman. They're not looked at as the central legendary figure at those clubs at that time. Whereas Steven Gerrard, he was Liverpool Football Club. He was the beating heart of Liverpool Football Club. He wasn't just a cog in the machine. He was the machine. And there seems to be quite a contradiction there for me. By not winning the Premier League, Steven Gerrard's story almost became bigger than winning the Premier League. And like I said, tragedy was soon to come. Everyone remembers the slip moment. April 27th, 2014. I was actually at the game myself. All Liverpool needed to do was potentially even draw that game against Chelsea, and then they could have went on to win the league. Liverpool were top of the table. Chelsea were visiting Anfield. Liverpool were blowing teams away 3-4-0 before half-time, and Gerrard slips. And in that moment, as a fan and as a player, time seemed to stand still. Gerrard had given his whole life to this club. This season was almost the final chance he was going to get. This was the closest we'd come to a Premier League title in 30 years. Gerrard fought through the ruins of the Rafa Benitez collapse. He survived the chaos of Hodgson's reign at Liverpool. Disastrous reign, I might add. He believed in the revival of Rodgers when he took over at the club. And in 1 second, that dream was gone. But I'm going to tell you something as a 35-year-old man who still idolises Steven Gerrard. Lionel Messi didn't win a World Cup until he was 35 years of age. Zlatan never won the Champions League. Ronaldo Nazario, my favourite striker of all time and considered one of the greats in football, also never won the Champions League. A stat that you'll probably be surprised at, but you can go and check. And Steven Gerrard, the man who played like a gladiator on the pitch, never touched the Premier League trophy. So here's another question that I tend to ask. Should we worship trophies over the people who sacrifice so much chasing them? What actually defines greatness in football? As an artist, I've painted Gerrard many times. Not just because he gave me the best days of my life, but because his story is as unique as he was as a player. Steven Gerrard to me was the canvas, the glory, the chaos, the tragedy, and the power. Other iconic midfielders that I've already mentioned, like Frank Lampard and Paul Scholes, were a lot more successful in terms of trophies at the time. But let me ask you this. If you're in a must-win game with 90 minutes on the clock and you could only pick one of those three players to win you the game, which player are you going to pick? Because even as a Liverpool fan, trying to look at this neutrally, Steven Gerrard is always going to get that vote more than others. He's the one that you trust with your life and put your money on winning that game. Which player do you remember in the 90th minute grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck, lashing it in from 40 yards out and rescuing the unrescuable? It's Steven Gerrard. And I don't paint statistics, I paint moments. And Steven Gerrard gave us more moments to remember than any other player that I can think of. Here are a couple of examples of my paintings of Steven Gerrard over the past 5 years. Moments that for me, I will remember forever. Moments that, again, gave me the happiest days and nights of my life growing up. Moments that even fans that don't support Liverpool will never be able to forget. So what makes a footballer truly great? Is it the trophies? Is it the stats? Is it the influence on what they had around them? Or is it the feeling that they gave you? Is it that electric charge, that lump in your throat when you're watching them? That belief that anything is possible, even in the 95th minute of extra time. Steven Gerrard made me and millions of others believe that anything was possible. As a kid, as a fan, and as an artist. And even now, when I paint him or illustrate him, I don't see him as a failure for 1 second. I see a man who refused to quit no matter how many times the odds were stacked against him. A man who stood tall when others would have walked away. A man who slipped but kept on running after it. So maybe he was never meant to win the Premier League. Or maybe Steven Gerrard won in a way that no trophy could ever measure. Steven Gerrard won by capturing the hearts of every Liverpool fan at the time and every Liverpool fan to come for generations. If you like this video, you might also like this video as well. And if you want to download any of my artwork for free as a phone wallpaper, just hit the link in the description below to see the full collection. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, feel free to subscribe.